Hello everybody and welcome to lesson 13 of class. Now in this lesson we're going to talk about love and trust, and is it logical, right? Because to understand trust you have to understand that it's not tangible. The same thing with love. It's not tangible. It's something that has to be shown, felt, and somewhat understood when it comes to trust, yes or no. Now when we're talking about trust, by definition it's the firm belief in the reliability, the truth, or the ability or strength of someone or something. Now in my last video I know I may have ruffled some feathers because I was talking about God and gods and is it logical to believe in such a thing, right? Well, in order to do that you have to develop both love and trust. Now without those two things you cannot have that, right? Now if we were to talk about real estate, it's the same thing. You set up a trust, but the trust pays out to people. The thing is you have to trust the people that the trust is paying out to, yes or no. Now if this is the case, people will say, oh, a trust was set up. Well, what does that mean? If you don't understand the terminology, you can just understand the word, then you won't understand what's being said. This is why things have to be felt, heard, and understood, right? People will say sometimes, I feel like you're listening to me, but you don't understand me. Or I feel like you're listening or you don't hear me. And a lot of people in relationships will actually hear this and actually go through this experience, yes or no. Or should I say yes or yes? Excuse me. So since trust cannot be seen, it has to be shown or demonstrated in order for a two-way conversation to occur. And forgive me for looking to the side, I have notes here because I wanted to be very precise with this one because I already ruffled some feathers with my last video. But there has to be trust on both sides for a two-way conversation to occur, for someone to take the first step. Now, if you read the Bible, things like that, it talks about taking the first step. Moses had to take the first step to go beyond the burning bush to lead people. Jesus told his followers to take the first step. Peter, get out of the boat, come over here, so on and so forth. Stop being scared, etc., so on and so forth. I know there's some preachers around here that want to open their mouth, but they're scared because they might get canceled because they may not actually believe in the words that they're preaching in. Now the thing is that the Bible was written in analogy, metaphor, and entendre, and it's more like a condensed library, right? Because the herbs of the earth will heal the body, but who understands that? This is why we have medicine, but now medicine has been made with chemicals and everything else. What happened to using an aloe plant to heal a wound? What happened to using rubbing alcohol, which you can get from ethanol or corn and things like that, to go ahead and heal the body, right? So people don't actually break down the terminology or the etymology of words in order to understand the very thing that they're talking about, in order to get across and actually help and teach and educate the people that are sitting across from them. So what do you think of trust as proper logic? Okay, let me rephrase that. Do you think trust is proper logic? It's probably not, right? Because you can meet a stranger, but over time is when trust actually develops. Now, when this happens, it's an invisible force that you cannot see, but it's a feeling that you have. And then, of course, if you tell somebody that you love or you trust them, what does that mean? Well, that comes with time, actions, responsibility, and actions taken, and follow through on those actions and responsibilities given and bestowed upon to those people. If trust is invisible, can you still believe in it as one would believe in something greater? So think of lesson 12, right? The gods are gods, right? You can't see it. You can't put your fingers on it. You can't grab it like a book or a piece of paper, but it's there, right? You know, when you get married and you tattoo a freaking name on your finger because you want to devote yourself to one individual person, or you wear a wedding band, so on and so forth, to symbolize that you are now taken, so on and so forth. Or in the Irish tradition, you would wear a clotter ring and you would turn it in position, so on and so forth. If you remember previous videos, I talked about wearing a ring like a wedding ring, meaning, oh, I love you, but if I'm going to get upset, we're going to talk about interpersonal communication, I'm going to switch it to the middle finger just as a subtle sigh of, I'm going to probably say some things that might upset you, but I'm trying to go ahead and not only not create dis-ease in my body, but it communicate in a way that makes me feel better. Now, this goes down to freedom of speech, but that's something completely different. Now, in the movie, I think it was The Italian Job. It was, no, not The Italian Job, Entrapment. First we try and then we trust, right? Now, when we're talking about first we try and then we trust, you think about it, Adam went around and he was trusted to take care of everything, so on and so forth. Then it was said that it was not good for Adam to be alone, so on and so forth, or for man to be alone, right? So therefore, the other counterpart was there. First we tried it with Adam. Now we're gonna try this because we're gonna create something that you just took care of, the mother nature, the woman, so on and so forth, that can replicate, so on and so forth. And then we trust with a life. Now it doesn't matter if you two stay together or not, you've both proven that you can take care of not only one another, both physically and emotionally, but now you can take care of an individual person because of the fact that you tried trust, and the trust developed into love, and now everything was, copacetic and there. So trying to explain that you trust someone is like trying to identify a mental disorder, right? You can't see it, it's invisible, it almost sounds like a pseudoscience, right? But with time, it's demonstrated every once in a while under certain circumstances. Now, when I'm talking about mental disorders, I'm not talking about someone that has drugs in their system and has a bunch of things going on, etc., and then within 24 hours, they're perfectly fine and they never show signs again. Normally, people with mental disorders stay in that parameter or within that time frame of, let's say, 24, 48 hours, and they'll stay stuck in that behavior unless medicated. And even if they weren't medicated, if they, snap back to normal, it may be a lapse or whatever, but if you don't identify the key thing, if you don't identify, oh, there might have been drugs in their system, they might have had too much caffeine, they might have had this, they might have had that, then you're probably going to be incorrect in the diagnosis. Same thing with love. Somebody may say a lot of sweet nothings and whisper them into your ear, but over time, you learn that how people communicate, how they show love, and how you receive it as well. And last time I checked, love is the thing that makes the world go round, and the only way you can have love is with trust. So like with everything, it comes to behavior and psychology and sociological understanding of not just the individual, but the world around that individual, and then the world around you, because people have their perceptions and the perspectives, right? In the military, we used to say perception is reality, and that is very true, right? Jordan Peterson, or should I say Dr. Jordan Peterson, hates when people question him on his belief in God, right? Dr. Jordan Peterson, do you believe in God? He hates the question, and I'm going to take a guess here, is because if he were to immediately say yes, automatically people's own perceptions of the world or whatever would feed onto him, or it would be reflected back, i.e. perspective, and people would assume that they believe in the same thing, when in actuality it may be something different. So as a society as a whole, emotions can be unpredictable when not affected upon by other invisible forces to trigger those emotions. What do I mean? I'm glad you asked. Well, invisible forces, the weather, right? It's not somewhat invisible, but if it's hot outside, you feel it. You can't actually tell somebody, oh, it's hot, and they go outside and they touch the air and it's hot. No, they have to go outside, they have to experience it. This is the same thing with love, connection, and trust. Now, think of this. When you go to court, there's a jury, but the jury cannot speak. They can only watch, listen, and understand, and pay attention to everything that's going on that others cannot see. Similarly to a referee at a sporting event, right? So you get a jury of your peers, meaning psychological understanding, so on and so forth, etc. So they have an understanding, they could present that to the judge, and then the judge has the ability to side with them or overrule, right? Now, the crowd gets to see everything from all different angles. The referee only gets to see things from their perspective or point of view, and their internal knowledge gained over time, which leads them to make a decision based upon pattern recognition, behavior, habits, and understanding of the history of certain characteristics that identify penalties, right? And the same thing happens in a courtroom. So think about this and ask this question. If you cannot see trust, how do you know it exists? So pause right there if you want to take time to answer that on your own. If you cannot see trust, how do you know it exists? It's a hard thing to explain, right? Do you need a doctor in a white coat to come out and say, yes, I believe you and you trust each other, so on and so forth, like a medical or mental diagnosis? You need a doctor to identify the invisible, and based upon these things, I think it's this. Or did they just look back in the pages, so on and so forth, and do what everybody else told them to do without doing their what's known as due diligence, which is a term from real estate, hence the word trust, right? Then it's similar to love, is it not? I mean, love is invisible. You can't see love. You can see affection between two people, but you can't see love. You can't see you can't see trust. So what is it? Is it something that is created in the figment of your mind and you all of a sudden believe it? Or does it take time and action and repetition to show someone not only are you about that life, but you are willing to go ahead and take the first step, show them where you're at, show them where you come from, and show them what you believe in, and then maybe you guys can meet on common ground, or as they say, meet in the middle, right? We're here in North Carolina, in the middle, before you start going to the south, like South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, etc. But it's one of those things where you have to understand love and trust are both invisible, like a mental disorder. So are you crazy for believing in things like love and trust? Think about that the next time you talk about it, or you talk about someone, because everybody is fighting a battle you know nothing about. You only have small assumptions. And if you want to read someone else's journal on what they think about somebody, that's called hearsay in the courtroom, right? Remember, a long time ago, I said I was kind of like an attorney, but I never went to law school. I may have studied a lot of law books. My uncle was an attorney. I may have went into a couple law classes, but I never went down that path because logically it didn't make sense for me to enter into an endeavor that was just black and white when creativity is all around us. Now remember, we are in logic, not creativity, and I'm glad that you got the education from creativity to understand how all these logical pieces come together. So I want to ask you a question. Is love seen or displayed? I'm going to say that again. Is love seen or displayed? Is trust seen or displayed? Take a moment to soak that in, right? Because you can love someone and you can trust them, but when they're not around, what is it that you believe? There was an old quote from a movie that said, I trust everyone, I just don't trust the devil inside them. Now, that was from, I think, The Italian Job, but it's very true, right? So let's say you're dating a beautiful woman, so on and so forth, etc., or a rich man, etc., and when they're not around, they're around other attractive people that have similar to common wealth, or similar to common beauty as yourself, if not more. And will you trust them to stick with you by your side, even during the times of heartache, during the times of questioning, during the times of, well, there's an invisible thing here that I can't see and I'm battling with it? Why not have that open communication? Because not everything in this world is made up, right? Most people will tell you to look up, so on and so forth. Keep your head up. It's okay. You tough guy, you're a soldier, etc. No, it's not always that. Sometimes it has to be a look straight ahead at the other person and have a conversation with them. Now, if you want to have an indirect conversation, that's perfectly okay. That shows me exactly where you stand in the world today. But if you're scared to open your mouth for fear of getting canceled or whatever, or stating the wrong thing because you don't want to actually express yourself, well then, my friend, you have not learned how to live life, right? Because life to me is, one of those things that is beautiful, and love is, well, life over vicious emotions. And I'm going to say that again. The acronym LOVE could stand for life over vicious emotions, because anybody who's in love normally doesn't have vicious emotions while they're in the moment of love, right? And then, of course, if you help somebody pull through that and get past the vicious emotions, then of course you develop more and more trust, right? And let's take it a step further. Is love and trust, is it a feeling? If yes, then is it an emotion, which is also invisible like electricity, right? Because most of you by this point may have been questioning some of the things, but you can't really see electric unless lightning strikes, and it doesn't strike twice in the same spot. So is love and trust something like electricity? You can't see it, you do use it, you'll definitely appreciate it, especially when it's there, but can you always see it, and is it a feeling? Is trust a feeling or an action that is captured in a moment? Yes, because in detrimental moments, when you're looking for somebody to stand up for you, when you're looking for that one thing, that one individual that you know has the ability to not only make you feel a certain way, but that understands you, because as they say, it takes one to know one, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's one of those things that it has to be displayed in the moment. And if it's not displayed in the moment, then there is an issue not only with that relationship, but there's an issue with the communication in that relationship. Yes or yes? So as we move forward, we want to start understanding that not everything in this world is logical, and it's not always going to make sense. This is why people go to doctors, so on and so forth. However, the real doctors, if you ever seen House MD or actually been to a hospital, real doctors don't wear white coats. Real doctors actually know how to perform a diagnostician, or perform like a diagnostician, right? They know how to break everything down. They don't take the lackadaisical way of looking at a patient's history. They look at things holistically. What was everything here? Let me get some blood samples. Let me do this. Let me see how much caffeine was in their system. Let me see what was actually in their system before we start putting other things into their system that might make them react a different way or a certain way, and then give them whatever type of diagnosis. Now, I'm only speaking from personal, experiences, not only from myself, but from other family members, friends, etc., so on and so forth. And it's been proven that most people will go ahead and take the advice of a doctor over somebody that's done their research, so on and so forth, that doesn't have a PhD but is very intelligent, because the person with the piece of paper has some type of credential. Now, don't get me wrong, COVID was great and all, but Dr. Anthony Fauci was a little bit wrong on a couple things. Yes or yes? And if you're saying yes to that, then you're probably going to start doing your research. And you can utilize AI for this because, well, it's connected to the internet. And guess what, people? It's free. And it's very logical for you to tell AI to become a collective mind, or become a collective mind of the top doctors in the world with over 50 years of experience, and then break everything down from there and have it run triage with you, because AI already passed the MCATs. It's proven that it could go into the health field. It's proven that it passed the LSAT. So what are you scared of? Getting canceled? Don't we live in a world of freedom of speech, or are you too scared? Break out your bubble, because it's funny. A lot of people, when Bluetooth came out, people thought people were crazy because they had a little thing in their ear and they were talking, so on and so forth. They're like, oh, you look crazy talking to yourself. But then when Apple cut the cord and only made Bluetooth AirPods, it made it okay for everybody to have AirPods and have Bluetooth, and everybody wanted to be a part of the cool kids, and all of a sudden it was okay, and that invisible barrier was broken. Right? This goes down to the law of diffusion of innovation, where there's innovators, early adopters, late adopters, and then of course the laggards. The laggards are the ones that think everything is made up, and they're so slow to go ahead and adopt, like the early adopters, new methodologies, ideologies, and things like that, to bring understanding to things and to look up at the etymology of words. If it is one or the other, I would love for you to put an answer in the comments or section. And what I mean by that is, if trust and love is a feeling or an action captured in a moment, please go ahead and put that in the captions below. Now I'm going to bring out my notebook here, and I'm going to continue on with this lesson for you guys. So if it's both a feeling and action, then both trust and love are a two-way action, which can be seen and felt. I literally wrote this at a bar, by the way, right? Attorneys, I'm not talking about the bar exam, I'm talking about an actual bar. And if for those of you who don't know the difference between an attorney and a lawyer, I'll let you Google that for yourself. Most people don't understand the difference between the two. One could defend you in court, the other one kind of has your back and can do research, so on and so forth, but they can't go into a courtroom because they never passed the bar to speak past the bar, which is the railing that you would have to walk past in order to present yourself to a judge. So Trust takes time of repeated action where love is a feeling, right? Yes, love is something that can be demonstrated, kind of, sort of. Like trust can be demonstrated, kind of, sort of. However, it's something that has to be done over and over and over again. After time has been taken, one will have to give in to trust, right? Because after time of someone proving themselves, after time of someone stating something, after time of somebody coming through with their actions correctly and meeting you in the middle, so on and so forth, so that you can have an actual conversation, well, you have to give in to trust. And once you have trust developed, then you can let someone into your personal life, so on and so forth. Most people have a public life, and then they have a personal life, and then they have an intimate life, right? The intimate life would be like with your lover, your spouse, your wife, or your partner, or whatever, your children. Your personal life would be like your friends, so on and so forth. And then your public life would be like your acquaintances and things like that. However, both take time and repeated action in order to be real. And I'll leave you with this. For the actions to be felt, they must be real. Because most people will go ahead and give proper lip service, but the actions and things like that carried out won't be real, and that will be reciprocated in a certain way, and it won't feel a certain way. If you remember Bruce Lee, he said, you must first learn how to feel. And if you don't learn how to feel, how else are you going to understand somebody? Because you're not able to put yourself in their shoes. You can listen to the words, however, you won't be able to feel what it is that they're saying and understand, because as it once said, you only know a man once you walk a mile in their shoes. So think about that. Hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I know it was kind of short, but think about love and trust and the 3 different lives and so on and so forth. And then take it a step further. Have a direct communication with somebody, whereas some people would rather have an indirect way of communicating because, well, they lack the ability to do so because of fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So what evidence have you been presented that may appear real that actually may be false? This has been Lesson 13. My name is Michael Guerrero, and I'll see you in Lesson 14 coming soon. Take care. God bless. Have a great freaking day. Bye-bye.